everyone, and thanks for making the time to join us this evening. My name is Michael. I'm the events coordinator and publicist at Annie Bloom's Books. For those of you who aren't familiar with the store, we're located in Portland, Oregon, in the heart of Multnomah Village, where we've been for 43 years now. We're open on weekdays from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and weekends from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Letting someone in here. Our website is always open. You can shop at annieblooms.com day and night. We offer curbside pickup, in-store pickup, local delivery, and various shipping options. If you're going to our website, the book that you'll probably want to order first is that one that I just put into the chat, tonight's book. Tina Connolly, Kesha Ajose-Fisher, Rachael K. Jones, and TJ Acena are with us tonight. Their stories appear in Dispatches from Anarres, Tales in Tribute to Ursula K. Guin, which is edited by Susan DeFreitas and is published by Portland's very own awesome small press, Forest Avenue. We have 4 new people, I've got to admit them. Welcome everyone as you're coming to join us. I was just telling folks about the people who are here tonight, but you'll hear more about that. It's for Dispatches from Anarres. We are Annie Bloom's Books. Special thanks to Bailey Potter, who is the copy editor for Forest Avenue Press and who wrote her master's thesis on Ursula Le Guin. So got an expert in the house. It's awesome. We'll have a Q&A at the end that Bailey is going to moderate. So you can type questions into the chat and Bailey will be happy to read them. You can also click on the little hand icon that's in the reactions menu down there on the bottom and raise your hand that way to ask a question live. I'm sure that'll be fine. Oh, hey. Speaking of Susan, we should get her into the audience. Welcome, Susan, who's the editor. And yeah, let's throw it over to Bailey to let her introduce tonight's folks. Bailey.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Annie Blooms and Michael, for hosting us tonight. I also want to thank the Le Guin Estate for supporting this project and Literary Arts for the fellowship that helped with the cost of publishing this book, as well as Laura Stanfill, of course. Thank you so much for publishing this, and Susan DeFreitas for editing it, and everyone else who helped contribute something to this book. It's really great. I want to just start off with a slight explanation of the timeline. So we're going to go in the order of Tina, and then Kesha, Rachael, and then TJ. I'll start off by reading everyone's bios, and then they can dive into their short story section that they're going to read, and then they can start discussing their story a little bit together. At about 7:45, we'll turn to Q&A. So audience members, if you have any questions that come up during all of these readings and discussions, feel free to drop them in there and I'll give them a shout out at the end of everyone's readings. So Tina, I will introduce you and then you can get started on your reading. Once I find your bio. All right. Tina Connolly is the author of the Iron Skin trilogy from Tor Books and the Seriously Wicked series from Tor Teen. Her stories have appeared in the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, Tor.com, Analog Science Fiction and Fact, Lightspeed, Strange Horizons, Beneath Ceaseless Skies, Uncanny, and many more, and are collected in On the Eyeball Floor and Other Stories from Fairwood Press. Her stories and novels have been finalists for the Hugo, Nebula, Norton, Locus, and World Fantasy Awards. So Tina, do you want to read a section from Hard Choices?
I would love to. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Bailey. So my story in this collection is actually a piece of flash, and therefore I could actually read the entire thing in about 5 minutes. So I thought I would go ahead and just read the entire thing for you in about 5 minutes. It is, well, you will see. It is a flash story that I wrote about 10 years ago, and it is to this date the only choose your own adventure flash story that I have written, but packs rather a lot into 5 minutes. It's called Hard Choices. A. Your little sister is tired of picnicking and wants to explore a cave. She says if you don't come, she will tell Mom what you were doing last Saturday. If you grudgingly accept her blackmail, go to B. If you let her tell Mom that you were skinny dipping with Bitsy on the shapeshifter reservation, go to Z. B. The cave is dark. You try to scare your sister with tales of carnivorous shapeshifters who eat bad children. She says that everyone knows that shapeshifters are cowardly beasts, easily beaten by the first planetary settlers. You ask why she knows so much history when you are flunking. If you vow to stop looking at Bitsy's shirt in history class, go to C. If you tell your sister to be quiet and respect her elders, go to D. C. You think about Bitsy's shirt as you explore the moist, dank cave. Stalactites drip on your head. Go to D. D. A swarm of glowbats fly out. They have a wingspan as wide as your chest and are phosphorescent during mating season. It is suddenly so bright that your sister sees you drop and cower, trying frantically to get the feeling of claws and wings out of your hair. Let's go back, you squeal. But she says if you don't press on, she will tell Bitsy you're afraid of mating season. If you grab your sister and march her out of the cave, go to Z. If you dry your tears and press on, go to E. E. By the light of 3 hanging bats, you see cave paintings. One painting shows many differently shaped shapeshifters greeting a rocket ship. One painting shows the shapeshifters bringing stalks of grain to humans. One painting shows a yin-yang picture, a shapeshifter eating a human who is killing him with a spear. One painting shows the shapeshifters huddled in a circle, surrounded with lightning bolts. Graffiti, sniffs your sister. If you think about the struggles inherent in the coming together of 2 sentient species and how we always seem to flub the hard choices, go to F. If you think about Bitsy's skin and sunlit water, go to F. F. Past the pictures, the cave forks in 2. One tunnel smells like rotten eggs. One tunnel smells like the strawberry shampoo in Bitsy's hair. Your sister goes down the eggy path. If you follow her, go to H. If you follow the memory of Bitsy's hair, go to G. G. Your cave adventure was a funny prank by Bitsy, who paid your sister $10 to bring you to her. Bitsy is waiting for you, arrayed only in long locks of strawberry shampooed hair. Unfortunately, Bitsy is a carnivorous shapeshifter and you die. H. At the end of the eggy tunnel is a bear. Since there are no bears on this planet, it is likely a carnivorous shapeshifter. If you proffer a handshake and recite the human shapeshifter protocol, go to I. If you throw your sister to the bear to buy time, go to J. I. The bear's paw becomes a maw and bites off your hand. It chews it up while it recites some manifesto about how it rejects the human shapeshifter protocol. You throw your sister to the bear to buy time. Go to K. J. You feel a little regret and try to save your sister. The bear bites off your hand. It spits the fingers on the floor. You feel ashamed that the fingers aren't worth eating. Go to K. K. Faint from blood and sister loss, you wrap your wrist in your shirt and run for the entrance. You lose some time when the bats fly over your head in a triumphal finish to their mating flight. Suddenly, Bitsy is there to save you. She helps you stand and dries your tears. She takes off her shirt and uses it to bandage your wrist. You feel a lot better. Then she eats you. Z. Your mother grounds you from the prom. Bitsy finds a new date. When you are 31, the great shapeshifter revolt comes to fruition. The human settlement is overthrown and the electric fencing destroyed for good. Bitsy finds you cowering in a bathroom, weeping that you will die a virgin. She makes love to you, tenderly, sweetly, and you remember a day of sunlit water and glorious splashing. There is no fumbling. There is no miscommunication. There are no tears. Then she eats you.
Thank you. Who wants to dive in to start discussing this?
I promise not to eat anybody.
mean, it's awesome. I'll say that. I love it as a story about like interspecies communication, and I'm really curious if that's kind of what you had in mind when you wrote it, like just, you know, the miscommunications you have when people from different worlds come together. And
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rachel. That was what I was trying to talk about when I wrote it. I realized when I was writing, so I'm really interested in the way that you can take that the structure of a story can influence the sorts of stories you can tell with it. And so this using a choose your own, a story where you get to choose multiple endings, that kind of story, to talk about a place in which people continue to make poor choices and don't seem to be learning from their mistakes, was a challenge that I wanted to try when I was talking about it. Yeah, I was interested. I wrote in my afterword that I had thought a lot about how Le Guin also looks at, well, in this case, looking at things with culture clash and the problems with different people not making the right choices and trying to work together or not trying to work together, but also with choices. I find that resonates a lot in her work.
It's especially interesting when I think about the idea of like a right choice and a wrong choice, and like, and especially in a story like this, which in some ways is about that, like, you know, the experience of young love and like how it can end so painfully and horribly, and like, you know, if, you know, this is the choice that you on some level are driving to make through the entire story, like, you know, anything can dissuade you, and like if it's even worth making the right choice, whatever that would be, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I was yeah, yes, that's interesting. That's interesting. They're watching someone trying continually to make what, of course, will seem like an overwhelming choice when you're a teenager as well. Could really can interestingly tie into that, I think. Yeah.
I also love just how much like comedy and world building you were able to fit into like 2 pages.
Well, thank you, Bailey.
Really impressive.
I was lucky enough to when after Le Guin passed away, there was the illustrated books of Earthsea came out that I'm sure everyone's seen this beautiful volume at this point that Charles Vest did the illustrations for. But I was lucky enough to get to go speak on a panel about that down at Powell's, and Theo Le Guin was there and some other people talking about how much her work meant to them. And I realized that the passage I chose to talk about then and read from there was yet another passage that was about choice. And so I remembered that today when I was preparing for tonight. And I had chosen a bit from the end of Tombs of Adawan, where Ged tells, you know, the young priestess, the girl who's been locked up in these tombs all her life, told that she has this one thing to do, and it's to be a priestess, and that's her only path in life. It's the only thing she can do. And then he tells her right at the very end, you know, you must make a choice. You can stay here and that can be the end of your story, or you can choose to leave and become yourself again, and that can be the beginning of your story. And I love that so much, and I keep returning to that. And so I was kind of surprised when I went to pull this today to see what I talked about before, that I was like, oh, it's also about choices. It's also about trying to make those hard choices and trying to do better as a people and as a person.
I love that. I'm actually using the illustrated version of Earthsea as a prop for my iPad right now.
Oh.
I have to get some height there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was lovely. In interest of time, I just would like to move on. Thank you so much, Tina. I really love the story of yours.
Thank you.
So Kesha, we're going to go with you next. I'll read your little bio. Kesha Ajose-Fisher is a Nigerian and American author, speaker, and dreamer. She is the recipient of the Oregon Book Award in Fiction for her debut collection, No God Like the Mother. She was a pilot, a deep sea diver, a boar wrestler, and once led an army of rescued dogs in her former life. Now she tells stories in a reincarnated body, and people call her an author. She hopes the world becomes a kinder place before she leaves it. It's a great bio. Do you want to go ahead and read a section of your story, Mr. Uncle's Favor?
I will. Thank you so much. And all of that was true, by the way.
I love that.
I wish. Thank you so much for including me tonight and in this anthology. I'll say really quickly, when I was about 8 years old, we had this uncle move into our house, the family home, and he was blind and also my only friend. And we had some of the best conversations, and I just, I don't know whatever happened to him, but I was always curious about his life and how he became blind. And I think I just decided to make up stories about who he was and why he came into my life. So this story is dedicated to him, wherever he is now. Okay. So, Mr. Uncle's Favor. Without interruption, Mr. Uncle and I had begun this routine of give and take, meeting in the mornings and again after supper. He planted Yoruba inside my words and taught me to count in the language too. I shared as much English as I knew. He introduced me to agbalumo, a leathery fruit with a milky orange pulp and black seeds that chipped my front tooth the first time I tried it. Mommy was not happy about my broken tooth. I showed her the agbalumo. Mr. Uncle said to give you this. She twirled the small bruised fruit in her hand. This little thing cracked your tooth? I nodded, then showed her where to bite it, but she sliced it in two. I like my teeth. She scooped out the seeds and dropped the flesh onto her tongue. Her eyes squinted at the taste, then widened with pleasure as the juice moved from bitter to sweet. Ooh, that is good, she crooned. I told her it was my favorite thing about Nigeria. Second to meeting Mr. Uncle? Yes, Mommy. Well, just be careful, she had said. I took Mr. Uncle on a tour around the life I missed in New York, from eating hot dogs at Coney Island to watching Sesame Street, to the family on Good Times, to the Saturday evening parties where Mommy and Daddy barbecued ribs and burgers and all the neighbors came to eat and drink and dance. He liked to say, I can picture it. Mommy brought him a plate with a hamburger and French fries one evening. It's too wet, he said, after she pressed it between his hands. He bit into it. The meat is too soft. Try the French fries then, she said, after seeing his hand on the plate. He nibbled on a handful of the fried potatoes. These are chips. Mommy and I laughed. He devoured every chip on his plate and left the soggy bun and its filling along with an apology for me to take back to Mommy. He a nice man, huh, Mommy had said. He's my friend. She paused and glared at me. And Polly? Yes. All right, just be careful, she warned again. Now, a year later, I'd lost both. I wondered if Mr. Uncle was angry with me. Then I thought he was sick. Then I thought the woman had killed him and taken his room. Each morning, she came with swollen nylon bags and left empty-handed, wearing a different wrapper and blouse. After she got back on the bus to Abalinde, I waited for the swept-up mud to settle. Then I dashed toward his room and leaned my head against the door and listened for breathing. I heard nothing. I think I'll probably stop there. I don't know how much time I have or how long I was supposed to read for, but thank you for hearing me out.
That was perfect timing, about 5 minutes per discussion too. So I just want to say that I love the polarity that you have in your story. I feel like there's instances of light and dark. The blind man can see, the little girl who can see is a little bit blind. What's young can learn from the old and the old can learn from the young. I just love all of those.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. Either author want to jump in?
I just wanted to say I really liked the way you did the relationship between all three of them and the way that they all talked back and forth. I could feel the real sense of like the family connections between them as you read that bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I've, of course it's fictionalized for the story, but I just remembered always just wanting him to see and wanting to help him see. And I actually did steal Dad's cola nut pods, these seeds that my dad would eat. And I brought them to him because they said, it's heavily caffeinated. And when Dad said, it opens his eyes, I assumed it would help him see. And I remember giving it to him. I don't know. I enjoyed that time in my life, and I was so happy to be able to share that story here today. Thank you.
I also love your background story. At the end of your short story, you kind of talk about the teacher that inspired you and introduced you to Ursula. Like, when do you want to introduce that a little bit? Talk about that.
Sure. So I met Mrs. Morey. I'd been in the States for 3 years when I met her in high school, and she was actually the first person that I showed anything that I'd written. And where I was raised, there's a lot of superstition, and we, told stories. I needed to make sense of the world around me, and all the stories I grew up hearing, either Jesus was always the hero, or or the shamans were the heroes, even though in my life, the moms were the heroes, the women were the heroes in my world. And so to make it make sense in my writing, I had to find, these alternative worlds and claim it was juju that made these women so powerful or so wonderful or so great in their own right. And I remember my Mrs. Morey saying to me, what you want to do is possible, which, I mean, for a child to hear that is, I still remember the chills going through me. And she said, well, there are people that are doing these, doing something similar. And in America, it was science fiction, but, in Nigeria, outside of Jesus and the shamans, it was, it was possible. And she said, read Octavia Butler, read Ursula K. Le Guin, follow these people. And that's where it started for me, and realizing that I can tell stories that I want to tell with the heroes that made sense to me, whether or not it fit into the world logically, right? So that's yeah, thank you to, Mrs. Morey. She's no longer with us, but, right, those are the real heroes, the teachers that believe in children or make children believe in themselves. And she was mine. And to have, when I was invited to do this, of course I was going to do it. And I knew the exact story I wanted to tell. And I really do wish that she were still here with us so that I could show her that because she believed in me, I could, I know everyone says that a teacher told me I was great and I moved and I moved mountains because a teacher told me I could do it. I know everyone says it, but it's so true. And I was very fortunate to have this person in my life, and I will leave it there. Thank you all.
It was wonderful. I also had a teacher who introduced me to Guin. It was in college at PSU, Katia Amato. She also has left us now, but think about her a lot. So let's maybe move on to Rachael. So let me go ahead and read your bio. Rachael K. Jones grew up in various cities across Europe and North America, picked up and mostly forgot 6 languages, and acquired several degrees in the arts and sciences. Now she writes speculative fiction in Portland, Oregon. Her debut novella, Every River Runs to Salt, is now available from Fireside Fiction. Contrary to the rumors, she is probably not a secret android. Rachael is a World Fantasy Award nominee and Tiptree Award honoree. Her fiction has appeared in dozens of venues worldwide, including Lightspeed, Beneath Ceaseless Skies, Strange Horizons and Nature. All right, do you want to go ahead and read from your story, The Night
Yeah.
Bazaar for Women Becoming Reptiles?
Thank you, Bailey. Was a wonderful introduction. And yes, I'm not going to be able to read this whole story like Tina. So I'll be reading a small excerpt. Some fun trivia about this story. The title was the first part of the story that came into existence. So I wrote this as part of a contest where someone gave several authors titles and challenged us to write entire stories based on them. And this was the title I got. It was originally a slightly different title than the final one that you see here, but basically the entire thing came from the title, which is pretty unusual and pretty cool. And I guess I'll go ahead and jump into it so you can enjoy it. Okay. In the desert, all the footprints lead into Oasis and none lead out again. They come for water, and once they find it, no one returns to the endless sand. The city is a prison with bars of thirst and heat. Outside the gates, the reptiles roam, asps and cobras, great lazing skinks, tortoises who lie down to doze in the heat. Where they go as they pad and swish and claw their way through the sand, no one knows, save the women who looked over the walls and feel the deep, itching pressure in their bones, the weight of skin in need of sloughing. Though Hester has sold asp eggs at the night bazaar for 5 years, she has never become a reptile herself, no matter what she tries. She takes eggs wherever she finds them. She has eaten those of skinks and geckos. She has tasted sun-warmed iguana eggs. She has traced water snake paths through Oasis and dug for their nests. She has braved the king cobra's sway and dart and devoured its offspring too. Once she found an alligator egg and poked a hole in the top and sucked out the insides. But no matter what she tries, Hester has never broken free and escaped the city like the other women do. She even tried the asp eggs once, the ones that were her livelihood. It was the day after Merrick, the mango seller, asked her to take her as her sunside lover. Hester left home and dug asp eggs from the clay by the river. The sun spilled long, red tongues across the sand, over the footprints, always entering the city, never leaving. And Hester's skin itched all over, and her flesh grew hot and heavy, and she longed for cool sand sliding across her bare belly. 1, 2, 3 eggs into her mouth, one sharp bite, and the clear, viscous glare ran down her throat. The shells were tougher than she expected. They tasted tart, like spoiled goat's milk. She waited for the change, but the sun crawled higher and nothing happened. She has never told anyone about the day with the asp eggs, not her mother, the batik dyer, who spatters linen in hot running wax and crafts her famous purple cloth. Not Merrick, her sunside lover, who sells indigo cactus flowers and mango slices on a wooden tray. Nor Shina the butcher, her moonside lover, whose honey gold verses roll from her tongue, smooth and rounded as sand-polished pebbles. Hester hasn't told them because they are why she longs to leave. The night bazaar meets on a different street each week. Each morning before at sunrise, Hester finds 3 blue chalk symbols sketched on the door jamb behind the perfumed jasmine bush. Sometimes she sees a falcon, a crane beneath a full moon, and a viper climbing a triple column temple portico. This means we assemble where the street of upholsterers intersects the street of priests when the crane rises. Or it might be a hand holding an eye, a wavy river, and a kneeling woman, which would mean meet where Oasis runs to mud and beware the police. Hester memorizes the message and wipes off the chalk with her sleeve. They meet in secret because the night bazaar was outlawed when the emperor stepped down from her throne and became a snapping turtle. No one knew if she chose to change or if a traitor had slipped her the eggs unawares. These days, vendors caught selling such goods moonside are made to drink poison sunside. Even possessing the eggs earns a speedy execution. But in Oasis, women at their wits' end have always eaten the eggs and fled. And I'll stop there.
I love that all of this came from just a title. Such a unique prompt.
Good title, you know?
It is. I was going to ask you where this idea came to you because it's just so like out there, but I guess that's it.
Well, I think, yeah, so it started with the title. I can tell you a little more about maybe how I developed the story once I was given the title.
Yeah.
I was really interested in the story of exploring, actually, this is very directly in conversation with one of my favorite Ursula Guin stories. It's one of her novellas called The Matter of Segre. And that one, if you haven't read it, it's fantastic. Its general idea is that aliens at some point in the past went to this planet and tampered with these people's genomes. And now, as a result, there are 16 women born for every man. And it has completely changed their society as a result in all these weird and surprising ways. And like, you know, so completely changed these people's concept of what gender means and what your destiny is based on your body. And this story is very much sort of in conversation with that. I'm interested in this idea that, you know, societies can be very conservative in different ways. And this is a society that's very conservative in a way that ours is not. So it's one where it's expected that everyone lead a double life. So in the story, like we have a sun side and moon side motifs where you're supposed to have a different lover depending on the time of day and your different job. And you're not supposed to talk about one part of your life when you're in another. And I'm very, very interested in how the rules of your society are shaped by what your society needs from you, and also just by what, you know, it results in what you're allowed to do and what you're allowed to be good at. And so that's sort of, if you read the entire story, you'll kind of see how that develops a little more, and how then you kind of get in the idea of like, you know, what do you do when you're in a body that doesn't fit into your society in a sense, or just, you know, what's assigned to your body is not really working for you. And there's kind of an unusual solution in the story. Yeah.
I also love that the world is so sustainable. You don't quite mention it in your reading, but those of you who will read this afterwards, yeah, their bodies are all used everywhere else. Like, can you talk about the sustainability aspect of this?
Yes. So in this book, there's a little bit of depending on how you define body horror. There's this idea that when these women eat the reptile eggs and turn into reptiles, they literally shed their bodies. And so your human body dies and falls down, your body bursts open, and out comes the reptile, which is creepy, but also awesome. And then what's left behind is, you know, everyone takes apart the body, and the bones go and get used in one place. Like, you know, your body fat gets made into like candles, your hair gets made into things, and it goes all over the city and kind of gets consumed by this society. I guess like that's important to me for a lot of reasons. Like, I think that there's part of a positive way you can look at that, and the fact that these people really, you know, view death and view bodies in a different way, and in, you know, the human body as something to be valued and treasured. Is also kind of that dark side of like your society literally consuming you when they're done with you. So I suppose it can be like, one thing I love about the Ursula story that it's in conversation with is that it's very, you know, purposely agnostic towards whether the society is a good thing or bad thing. So like, you know, when you have these cultures that arise that are really, really different from ours, you know, it's easy to kind of sit from a place of judgment and from a place of like our own lenses that we carry with it, and make a judgment of good or bad. But people who live in those societies often have much more nuanced viewpoints of what that means, and in fact may even have values that like don't necessarily overlap entirely with ours. And so like in my story, you know, these are people who definitely value the body, they value duality, they value secrecy in a very interesting sort of way, and, you know, and they also, you know, within their gender roles have a different sort of family structure. So they believe that, you know, for a person to be complete, you need 2 mothers and 1 father. And so for, you know, there to be a sun side mother and a moon side lover, that, you know, both have a role in like, you know, what it means to be like a full person in this world.
I was going to say, I like that with the entire usage of the bodies too, because it's like if it really fleshes out, so to speak, the entire world of the story. So it's not just, you know, oh, I made this one small change to talk about one thing. It's permeating, you know, okay, well, how would that play out in other aspects? Then what would happen? You know, where would all these things go? So it makes the world more richer and more believable to have worked out, you know, what the waste management system looks like when you're shedding your bodies, etc.
especially in a desert, like because
Oh,
I think
yeah.
part of the whole trap of the city is that there's no other resource but each other. Like they stay because they don't think they have anywhere else to go, and so every single thing becomes precious. Yeah.
It's so fascinating. I've never wanted to be a reptile until I read your story.
What reptile? What would you be, Bailey?
Oh God, some sort of snake. I recently got a snake tattoo, so I guess I'm into snakes right now. Thank you. I love that. We're going to move on to TJ. I do want to also point out, though, that this is our last author. So if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat and we'll get to those after this one. They can be for any author or all of them all at once. No pressure. So TJ is a writer living in Portland, Oregon. His writing has appeared in the Somnambulist. I probably said that wrong. Hello, Mr. Pacifica Literary Review, The Oregonian, and the Portland Mercury. So TJ, why don't you read part of The Taster?
Thank you. Just get right in. Twice a week, I took the train into the inner ring of the Capitol. The spire rose from its center, a five-cornered silver tower twisted up into a point, creating the impression that the city actually revolved around it. It was one of the 9 hubs, massive structures that served as the administrative points of the system government. A continuous stream of senators, diplomats, and bureaucrats came and went at all hours of the day. My workplace was far removed from the center of power. It stood just a few blocks from the train station, a small windowless building surrounded by thick hedges, the repository of digital humanity. It was Tuesday. Ravi stood in his large oak desk and greeted me as I entered the lobby. As the public face of the Institute, he was the only employee who wore a uniform, a high-collared black kurta with golden lining around the neck. Though, except for the occasional aimless tourist and the yearly school trip, no one actually visited. He scanned his badge in the wall behind him and we went into the gray room. It had no official name, but the room was a light matte gray, as well as the table and chair that sat in the middle of it. The air was warmer here than the lobby, just below body temperature, the environment designed to minimize outside stimulus. I sat and Ravi attached the sensors of the interface to my head and chest. I could attach them myself, but he spent most of the day alone and enjoyed these brief moments of human contact. Ravi had wanted to be an actor in soap operas, but was not selected to attend the repertory after his general education. Acting was in his blood, he told me. His great-great-great-great-great-grandmother was one of the most famous soap stars on the Indian subcontinent. While he set up the interface, he explained the latest episode of his current favorite, Taming the Red Planet. Set on Mars during the early terraforming efforts, I found the show contrived and over-emotional, but Ravi loved the melodrama. It set pre-immortality. People really knew the value of life back then, he said. Ravi let the door click twice and the locking mechanism cycled, an obsolete security feature from the first years of the repository when anger over the exclusive nature of the technology was widespread. A number flashed on the table display. 3.2 million digital citizens were connected to the interface. In front of me were 5 mandarin oranges on a gray plate. I had never eaten a mandarin before this job, as they had only recently been reintroduced to the continent, and they were not sold commercially. But the digital citizens had requested I eat them every other session because of my especially strong responses to the fruit. Hello, Silas, came a voice over the speaker. Over the centuries, the digital citizens had formed a gestalt entity in order to speak through the interface. The collective voice was soft and genderless. It's an honor to serve, I said. Please begin. I stuck my thumbnail into the dimple at the bottom of a mandarin and peeled the rind away. A fine mist of juice erupted into the air. As I did this, my physical responses were fed into the interface. I placed a wedge in between my mouth and crushed it. The familiar sweet juice flowed into my mouth as the flesh fell apart. A soft sigh escaped the speaker as I closed my eyes. When I put the last rind down, however, the door did not unlock automatically. Are you feeling all right, Silas? Asked the digital citizens. I stared at the ceiling speakers. There were no cameras for them to watch me through, but I could not talk to them without focusing on something. A sense of unease had followed me to work this morning. I'd almost forgotten about it until this moment. It's nothing. You may speak freely. We wish to know what troubles you. It was something in the news. What was it? Something about the colonies, a mining colony series. There was an accident, I think. I looked down at my hands. A tunnel collapsed. There were fatalities. Our bodies didn't age anymore, but they were still fragile things. And so death still came for us, often in the bloodiest ways imaginable. It's scary to think about death. When you were alive, how did you? We do not wish to speak about that. I'm sorry. Thank you for your service, Silas. There was a sharp modulation to their voice I had not heard before. The display went dark and the locking mechanism unsealed and Ravi entered. My shoulders slumped against the back of the chair. The digital citizens had been human centuries ago, before the end of natural aging. They had sacrificed their bodies in order to exist forever. I had made a misstep in mentioning death. Did something happen? Ravi asked as he peeled off the electrodes. I stared at my hands, brow knitted. I don't know. I'll just stop there. There's a lot more to the story. That was like the first fourth, I think.
That's great. I love it. I like how you came from kind of the anthropological viewpoint, and that's what you mentioned in your little description at the end of your short story, and how you were thinking of the left hand of darkness when you were writing this. You want to talk about that process and kind of what prompted you?
Well, I've only read one Ursula K. Le Guin book, and that one is it. So that was kind of why I was thinking about it.
It's a safe space. It's okay.
I actually had just read it right before I started writing this story. And I was so kind of struck by the way that the story is so focused on the society and how that works. And that's not something I had seen in like a lot of other writing, obviously. And then that's like kind of what she's known for. And the story actually started with just the image of someone peeling a mandarin orange. That was like literally why I just started writing. And then I kind of imagined, well, why would a person be paid to eat an orange? Like what would cause that to happen? And then I kind of my mind just started creating this like future world where all these things happen, and then it just kind of evolved from there. And so I was really interested in kind of creating this society that they live in, and kind of dropping hints about why things are the way they are. So
It's awesome. I was going to actually ask you if you just really like mandarin oranges.
I mean, I do. I love them. They're so great. I look forward to it like every winter when they come out.
TJ,
Yeah,
would you take this job if you could? I was just say, would you take this job?
Oh yeah, definitely. I would be happy to be paid to eat things for other people and have them experience that. I love it. I consider myself a very good eater.
Great answer. And I like how the person in the same kind of job position in the story that follows the main character, she's a music listener versus being a taster. Would that be your backup choice?
I think so. I kind of thought about like all the different senses that, that people who exist in a digital format you could try to feed them as experiences. And I think that would probably be the second best, because I feel like smeller would not be as good. Although like maybe touch, like if you just got to touch objects, that would be pretty cool.
What's particularly neat about it is it puts your reader into the state of, ooh, I wonder what I'm particularly good at sensing, and like you just said, touch, like, ooh, yeah, can I be the one to just sit there and touch velvet all day or whatever it is would be interesting. But yeah, sitting there and thinking, what am I particularly good at sensing is a fun thing for a reader to ponder.
Yeah, definitely not the smelling job. And someone said, can I just pet animals? Yes, I would love to only pet animals.
I I'm sure that the digital people miss petting animals. And
Right.
it's definitely a trade-off, I guess, for this immortality.
Right.
I think mine would be feelings, like just give me all the commercials and I'll just sit there and cry and laugh. All right, well, we're in the Q&A section now. If anyone has questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I don't know if we have the function to let you ask your own question. Maybe Michael can help us out with that if you want to come onto camera.
Yeah, I just unmuted. Am I on?
Yes, you're on.
Hi, this is Richard. Thank you so much, everybody, for your readings, for your participation. This book is a godsend. Thank you so much. As I said in chat, great Aunt Ursula was kind of like the relative that you went to for the secret knowledge that you didn't learn from your own parents. So I learned I was a Taoist and an anarchist. My question to each of you, was there anything that you had learned from Ms. Le Guin's readings in your formative years, or even like last year? Was there anything that resonated with you, and did that inform your choices for the kind of stories you write, not just your contribution to the anthology, but for everything that you've written in your careers?
I mean, I can say something, Richard. Thank you. I liked that the heroes and stories that I was introduced to weren't. Oh, can you not hear me? Oh, no, I'm fine. Okay. I like that heroes didn't always, they weren't landing in the middle of town doing the Superman stance, right? I like that, heroes could be whoever I wanted them to be. And I said earlier that the women in my life were my heroes. The women, I was especially raised by mostly women. So those were the people that I looked up to, and I like telling stories about women. And I think having, someone show you that, superhero didn't have to, wield a sword or, blast the world into bits to make it make sense was really important for me as a writer. I mean, it was 15, 16. I wasn't telling those stories then, but it was nice to see it done in the world. Okay, I'll go away now.
I definitely have big feelings about this question. I love it. Yeah, Richard, I grew up in a very conservative religious household, and I remember reading Ursula's books like, am I allowed to read this? Is anyone watching me to see this forbidden content of these weird worlds? And I remember reading The Left Hand of Darkness with that first opening line with the king was pregnant and being like so I remember just tearing through her work and just finding it just so subversive and so different from anything else I'd ever read. And it definitely shaped my interest in just that anthropological eye towards people, just thinking through, why do societies do things, and how are we shaped as people by the societies we live in, and vice versa, on large numbers of things. And I think that she was just so like a surgeon, and how her works just dissect people's motivations and the way that your society's values replicate themselves across every level. So even the dispossessed, which our anthology is kind of named in honor of, the idea of reimagining anarchism, not in this sort of simplistic light of kids smashing bottles on the street, but what does it really mean not to own things, and what does that look like on every level of your society, and what happens when your society comes into value conflict. So I can't think of another author like her, except for maybe Octavia Butler, who kind of expanded my brain in that way. And I just think we're lucky that we had her in our world,
Does another author want to jump in on that question before we move to another? All righty. Well, Karen, I see you have your hand up. Would you like to unmute and ask away?
Oh, thank you. And hi, Pan.
Yeah.
Love connecting with everybody. I am loving, and I want to say to all of you, all of these readings, and they're brilliant. And I'm a person who loves to read, and I also love to write a whole lot. And I've been kind of down because, you know, for years and years and years, oh, the muse isn't visiting. And what you're showing me is that all you need to do is have the conviction to follow that one little kernel, that one thread, and don't worry if it's not epic right at the beginning. You'll create the epicness, whatever. And I really appreciate that a lot. So thank you for the inspo. And
That's awesome.
kudos.
Thank you, Karen. That was great. I'm looking through the chat. Feel free, anyone else, to raise your hand. We'll call on you. Kathy
What?
Behrens had a question in the chat. Oh, did I interrupt someone?
Oh, no, I was about to interrupt you and let you remind you of that one. So go for it.
Perfect. Kathy Behrens is asking you, TJ, are any of your characters afraid of immortality?
In the story, no. In my mind, like the story is, the end of aging happened so long ago that people have just kind of adapted to this way of living. Also, as someone who was just like, the other thing I channel in the story is like, I have like an intense fear of death. And so like, to me, it seems like not such a bad deal to be immortal. So that is like the framework, I guess, in using this story.
I like that your inspiration partially is that you're also afraid of death. I mean, everyone is, but
Oranges and existentialism, just that's how you make a story.
Ursula would approve.
Two great tastes that taste great together.
Anyone else want to ask a question? Or just chat? The great band name.
Hi there. I have a question. My name's Peter. Nice to see you all. I guess a question for everybody, all of you, all the authors, and maybe for everyone. Do you find, in this case, we're talking about writing that is specifically a reaction to a prompt or somebody's body of work? Do you find that you're always writing as a reaction to the world around you? Do you feel like it's a specific reaction? Do you feel like you can backtrack and find the thing, the Mandarin Orange, or a love of choose your own adventures, or the question about how a body is reused or how we become something else, or a childhood memory? I mean, these are just things that as I listen to all of you, I find a thing that was that what the moment is, and is that important to all of you in your process?
I think a lot of times, if I can jump in on this one, a lot of times I can go back and find the exact thing that started me. And today, it's just funny because today one of those popped up for me in my Facebook memories, which was, gosh, whatever year this was now, must have been 2017. And I was, it was right after the election and I was having a tough time. And there was a bake sale. Our local bakery did a bake sale right up. So that's right up here, Baker and Spice. And they with some other bakeries in town did this like baking as resistance, and you could support like the resistance by buying baked goods, and that grew into a story I wrote about resistance and baked goods called The Last Banquet of Temporal Confections. And it's so sometimes I can look back and I can say, yeah, I know exactly where that started and I know what I want to write about. And sometimes, like TJ said, I just start writing about an orange, and then you start to see where it unpeels from there.
As a follow-up, then, would you say it's like you're like an antenna or a receptor, or you you have a net, or are those metaphors useful? I imagine everyone has their own experience, but I'd be interested to hear how you each describe that experience.
I'm very happy when sometimes it feels like there's a net, because other times it feels like you're just chipping away at some stone trying to find the story that's buried in there somewhere. You're very sure of it if you could just chip away long enough.
So a Michelangelo approach there.
Yeah, sometimes, and I can say this now, but sometimes ideas come when I think of something that I know I'm not allowed to say in polite company. So then it's easy to just put it in a story. And I've, built a whole world out of, some random inappropriate idea that I could never share with anyone, and no one has to know that it's my thoughts, because I can have someone else saying it in a character. So it happens like that sometimes too, Peter.
Cool. That's wonderful. Thank you. Rachel, TJ, do you want to tell me?
Sure. I'm kind of thinking more about what you said at the beginning about how, the whole idea of writing in conversation with other authors and other things you've read. And I think it is definitely true that we're always doing that, whether we know it or not. It'd probably be not very humble otherwise to just acknowledge that. If you kind of think about how why it's so compelling to browse TV tropes or something, don't fall down that hole. But part of the fact is that there's just these little little nuggets of repeated bits that we all kind of recognize over time as readers and as people who consume all kinds of media. And that I think that for me, the experience of being a writer is finding new ways to kind of play with them and put them in different orders and find some way to make them fresh. And my favorite thing to do, I like challenges. I find that a lot of my best stories come from somebody getting competitive with someone, someone giving me the title and saying, you can't, I dare you to write a good story on this, or I dare you to write me a zombie story I'll actually like, or I dare you to write a vampire romance that breaks somehow new fresh ground somewhere in that idea. And it's really fun to just see how you can play with those ideas that other people have played with, but find what's unique from my perspective or something new I can bring with it, or even more fun, mashing it with another idea until your Franken story comes out and it's somehow different and cool and people don't recognize the tropes anymore. So, and they give you points for being original when you're not. So anyway, don't tell.
This is the first time I've ever been in a reading where there was a panel thing, and it's wild to me that people want to ask my opinions about this kind of stuff. I'm just tell me about crap. I think similar to kind of everything that people were saying is I feel for me, I feel I've been writing since 2005 when I finished my bachelor's, and I feel finding my own voice as a writer has been a long process, and it continues to go. And I think we are always writing in response to things, because I think as writers, we ourselves change in what we like and what we want to write about. I think about the things I wrote, right out of college, and they're really different from things right now, because I read more, I take in more art, and it's just and you kind of see the different ways other people write and what they want to explore and how they can explore things. And I think it's just really important to think about that the idea that we don't arrive at our writing. It's a continuous thing. And I think about this last summer or last year, the year or two ago, I read a whole series of gay mysteries. I loved them. They were also very sexy, and I was you know what? I don't have enough sexy stuff in my stories, so I want to do that. But yeah, we're always not in response to even just particular writers, but just our lives and the stuff we can consume.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate that.
All right, I think we're getting close. Do we have time to answer the last couple questions, Michael? There was 2 in the chat.
Sure, yeah.
So Richard asked, I think he already left, but it's a good question. favorite books and stories by Lake Guin. How about everyone says one?
I just read The Dispossessed and I thought it was great because I literally read it for this reading.
Yay.
Well, I think I said The Left Hand of Darkness, right? Having that be the first story that I was introduced to, wrecked my whole soul. and then I knew I had to go and share all the madness that I had in this thing. So sorry, that's it.
I'm so glad you shared your madness.
Earthsea, and particularly the Tombs of Adawan.
Great one.
All right, have another vote for Left Hand of Darkness.
Take it. Susan DeFreitas says, always coming home. Yeah, that one's undervalued, I feel like. Any good sci-fi authors or books for middle schoolers was the last question. You can say any.
I highly recommend Greg Van Eekhout would be one of my choices. Also, Jen Reese is extreme. Did I steal yours, Tina?
Yes, you totally did.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. Okay,
But those
anyway.
are both great people. Yeah, Jen Reese is local. She's got some really wonderful middle grade fantasy and science fiction. Gosh, there's like all these people on the bookcase right behind me, but I will totally blank if I try to go into more of them.
This is a graphic novel anthology that just came out from a local press, Power and Magic, but it's called Mañana, and it's a story. It's 25 stories by Latinx writers and artists all over the world, and it's like 25 different visions of the future. And I just read it, and it's really great.
I'll have to look it up. Also, Ursula has some great YA novels too that would be good to recommend. And I think that was all of her questions. I think that might be it. Thank you all, and thank you authors for being here, and all of the people in the crowd and everyone who's not here who's wrote and contributed to this. It's been really wonderful. Go ahead and go order this book if you haven't already from Annie Blooms.
Yeah, I'm putting it in the chat one more time. There is the link to that.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah,
showing
thank
off my
you all.
bookmark.
Oh, good, the cat.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh,
It's been so much fun.
And I wanted to let everyone know that this is going to be up on our YouTube channel soon. So if folks weren't able to make it, you can let them know to go check it out there. You can watch it again, whatever you like. Thank you again, everyone, and have a really good night. Take care.
Oh no, did I say anything inappropriate?
No, not at all.
That's gonna end up on YouTube.
You're saving it for your next story.
Okay, I'll go rewatch it on YouTube.
Fantastic.
Oh, good.
Okay, all right. Good night, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.